coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, show 758. Garry and Richard are here. We've got lots to talk about. We've got new names for the rings on Windows Insider. So out go fast ring, slow ring, release preview, in come new names, winter channels. We now know the code name of the next update to Windows 10, which is going to be 20H2. We'll be finding out all about that. We'll be talking about Sonos. We'll be talking about Windows 10X. We'll be talking about Microsoft Launcher, Duo, all sorts of stuff. So let's get straight to Richard and Garry. Garry, Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. And I am definitely using the right microphone tonight. I don't know if anybody noticed, but last week even though I was talking into this microphone, I left it on the Surface earbuds. So all the audio last week from my side was from the Surface earbuds, which when I was doing the editing, I could tell the difference, but it was perfectly fine. So pretty good, actually. What I have to say as well, these Surface, I mentioned that when I first got them, my earbuds, my left ear, I think it was not the perfect fit compared to the right one. I think my ears have modified themselves to fit the Surface earbuds, which is good. So they're equally comfortable now. So somehow my ears have managed to adjust themselves. I'm not sure that's a really good thing, but anyway, that's the case, and I can wear these for quite a while now. So I'm finding out getting about 6 hours continuous, maybe 7 hours continuous listening before charging them up, which I think is pretty good. So although I'd be better if I get a full day out of them, I guess, while I'm working, but I don't necessarily wear them all day I'm working, but yeah, pretty good. I've got used to them now, so I do like these. Right, well, we've got lots of things to talk about. I thought it might be a slow news week, but there's been some changes over Windows Insider program that we can talk about. And we've got new builds, and we've got 20H2 has arrived.
Woohoo.
Hey.
Yeah. So let's start with the changes to the Windows Insider program. So we've had fast ring, slow ring, all that release ring. I don't know. Skip ahead. We've had them for 5 years? Has it been something like that now?
Yeah, 5 years. I mean, basically, fast and slow, and then they added in the release preview as well over time. So it's been various rings, and they've all been doing various different things. Yeah.
And Microsoft said that they're getting rid of rings and they're going to channels.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Yes. So they I mean, nothing much is changing from what I can tell. I mean, they're kind of adopting a similar naming that they use for things like Edge and Office, aren't they? So they're going to release preview channel, which is, I think, pretty much the same as a release preview ring, in that it's mainly about updates, sort of patches and things. I think the beta channel is going to be the slow ring, and I think, but they are saying the builds in the beta channel, or beta, depending on how you pronounce it, will be reliable and will be validated by Microsoft. And then what was the fast ring will become the dev channel, which is obviously going to be flaky as heck, or it'll be like the fast ring, so you can expect it to fall over. Although, again, my experience has been pretty stable, but you have to be prepared for the fact it might go bang without warning. Such as nature.
Sorry, Richard, I got the impression that they actually are expecting this to be more unstable than it was previously.
Okay. I mean, they have said there will be rough edges and some instability, but again, they are mapping that to the faster skip ahead ring. So, obviously, I think we'd quite like it to be unstable because we want to have all the new toys, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the reason they said they're making this change is because they're going away from frequency and to quality. That's the bar. So rather than it being one a week fast ring and one every 3 months for slow ring or whatever, it's not about. They're not tied to a specific time frame. It's on the quality of the builds and the features, I guess, that they want tested.
Yeah.
So
yes, exactly. It's again, they're kind of shuffling things around again. So good. I hope so, because at the moment it's been quite moribund of late. Although that said, we have had a flurry of updates. Although I didn't know that some of the updates still refer to things as the rings, and some refer to them as channels. So perhaps the branding has not quite spread out completely throughout Microsoft yet.
Yeah, I should say as well that these updates aren't coming through. You won't see these change of names when you go into your insider settings at the moment, it's later this month that they're due.
Exactly, yeah. So you have some bits of Microsoft who are referring to the channels already. Some bits are still calling them rings, and as you say, internally, in the actual software, it says rings still. So, but it's coming.
So how many ring puns did you get in your posts on the register post?
I didn't write it. It wasn't me.
Oh, no wonder. I was looking for some ring posts and I just saw the one, and I thought, this is not Richard.
No, I mean, I did write something that began with the phrase like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, but I thought no, it's been done.
Yeah.
So again, it's. I think we have to see what happens. I mean, it's probably. I don't think it's going to be a lot different to what we have now. I think maybe they'll perhaps wait until they have interesting things to share in the file stream instead of just throwing things out as they have done. And it sounds like, as you say, if they do focus on quality, that is good, because I think certainly there have been, even with 2004, there have been some issues with that build which are unfortunate.
Yeah, and the first usage of these we'll get to see is, I guess, with these new builds that are coming out this week, and the change, unsurprising change, but the thing that they've announced this week or today, as we record Tuesday, is 20H2. Yeah,
20H2 build 190.42.330, which is 20H2, and it sounds like it's going to be very similar to what it did last year, and then it's going to be basically pretty much a patch for 20H1, from what I can tell. So a repeat performance of 20H2, which I think was no bad thing, just having it as like delivered as an update as opposed to a big bang release. Unless I've misread that, because it's all just happened just now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's a service release, so they're doing exactly what they did last year with 19H2. So this is going to be a patch that installs on the May update. So you're not going to get a full 4 gig image each time. You're just going to get a small servicing patch.
Well, I think we're going to get I think they are going to sort of force down the new Edge browser, aren't they?
Yes, that's the feature. Don't gloss over that. That is the feature of 20H2, because that is the thing they specifically called out. Although to be fair, they haven't said what the new features in 20H2 are, but I suspect that is probably the main change to it, because 19H2 had no features as such, did it?
I mean, not really. No. There's a few polishes, and again, I like to think that things are happening under the hood, which I'm sure Garry can enlighten us on. But it was very, which is, to be frank, how we kind of like it. We'd rather have Big Bang once a year, and then we'd rather have a nice, and this is the stable version. So which I think many IT admins, it's almost a sign that the Microsoft are going back to looking at where their bread and butter is, which is enterprises, and enterprises do not like a fast cadence of features.
No, definitely not. No, and there's a couple of changes they're doing to the 20H2 program this time. First of all, when you go and check for updates, they're not going to. I don't know if this is just this time or whether all of them. It doesn't. It's got the download and install option, so I don't know whether that's just a one-off while they're waiting to get everybody on it. So once you've accepted that, then you'll be on that cadence. But I've just noticed on my test machine here, it's come up with the download and install option for the feature update. I'm not sure. Once you're on that, I guess that they'll keep updating those as sort of mandatory updates when the next slowing build comes out. Yeah.
I guess the question will be at what point they force all. Again, they call it the beta channel in the blog post, formerly known as a slow ring. I guess the question is at what point they force all slow ring users onto that.
Yeah.
I think pretty sure something similar happened with 19H2. Though I seem to recall it being possible to stay on 19H1 and slow. So you kept getting the patches for 19H1, but you could choose to go to the actual seeker. So it kind of means in the beta channel you've got 2 versions of Windows potentially. Then so you've got the 19H, you've got 20H1 in there and 20H2 if you've chosen to seek it. If I've understood that correctly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which is not at all confusing.
Not at all.
And the other thing that they've changed, which you said was based on feedback, which is good news is that they're not going to, although they can switch on and off these features without changing the whole build, they're not going to do that thing where, like they did last time, where some people got features, some people didn't, and it was really confusing who had what features. So that's gone this time.
Yeah, definitely. That's good.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're on the slow ring, you've got this. You'll get this feature. End of story. So I think that is exactly what we need. It's much easier to test that. So if you're going to test in builds now, if you're on the dev channel, that's fast ring. You're going to get the unnamed version of Windows 10, which is just features from a future release that we don't know what they are yet. We've got slow ring now going to be called beta, which is 20H2, and release preview, which is going to be the May update, just fixes to the May update.
Exactly, yeah, 20H1.
Yeah, so 20H1. Yeah, so it makes sense. I just hope that some of the new features make it into 20H1 20H. No. So I'll say that again. I want the features to come in the fast ring, which is going to be the dev channel.
If you're confused, we're doomed, Ian. We're doomed.
Yeah, exactly. So so I want to see some new features coming now. So my theory was that they were testing 20H2 in the fast ring, but because of the build numbers, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But the way that they do these, switching these features in and out, then actually that's what they could exactly have done, couldn't they? Because they could just because they were in a higher build number doesn't mean those features can't be in 20H2. So my hope is that the 20H2 has now picked up what was in the sort of the fast ring type build, and we'll get some space now in the fast ring or dev channel to install some new features. But I don't know if there's anything currently. Is there anything currently particularly big in the fast ring that isn't in the May 2020 update? I can't think that there is really. Well, there's a few minor changes.
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, if you're a developer, I mean, I think the AMD nested that's quite important.
Yeah, and the same for the. Didn't they do the same thing for the ARM?
ARM stuff there too. I don't think the ARM stuff is nested yet, but I stand to be corrected on that. But certainly the I know ARM virtualization was a big thing, but I don't think it was nested. I think it's only the Intel has almost always had it. I think they've only just added it for AMD, and I do wonder if that's come about because they're now doing AMD powered Surface hardware, perhaps. But it's been a long time coming that particular feature. So there are some things in the fast string which hopefully are going to find their way. And of course, there are some really big chunky things due before 20H2 is supposed to be shipped, which I guess will probably be around the September, October, November timeframe. One of those obviously being, again, I'm getting a bit developer friendly here, but one of those being the GPU pass-through for WSL. So whether that's going to be done as a separate update outside of Windows, because obviously they can now service WSL2 in theory outside Windows. So all that, I still feel that's a bit muddy right now.
The WSL2 serviced outside of Windows, that was actually in the last fast ring build, wasn't it? I think, was that in the last fast ring? It was this fairly recent.
It was the kernel patching because they were supposed to get that into the May 2020 update. I'm not quite sure why it didn't make it in. Garry may know more, but it was talked about back in March that it would be in the May 2020 update. It didn't make it in. It's in the fast string now, but of course it's patching it's so they can patch the Linux kernel. So I would think, again, these are all very heavily developer focused. Most ordinary users will never go near this stuff anyway. But at the moment, I don't think it's clear how much of that's going to go in 20H2, how much of this stuff is going to be in 21H1, and how much of it can be done outside of the whole Windows servicing process anyway. So, Garry, help us here. Clarify.
I'm not sure I can, to be honest. I think there were some issues, obviously, with the out of sync updating for the WSL stuff. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure how much of a priority that is. I know there's us nerdy people like it, but certainly some of my smart home enthusiast friends like the fact that you've got the Linux subsystem in there as well, but it's not applicable to the vast number of Windows users, so I'm not sure it necessarily gets as much priority as it perhaps would otherwise. In terms of other things coming, there's a lot of stuff coming under the hood to support all the new .NET stuff. the one .NET Core, whatever you want to call it, this week. And
.NET 5.
.NET 5, yeah, .NET 5. That's the easiest thing to call it.
It's .NET 5.
Yeah, let's call it .NET 5. Yeah, but they need to do a lot to support that and all the Win UI stuff, which is coming alongside that. So there's a lot of developers waiting for beta for this stuff to come out, but obviously it's not there yet.
And now they're making a bit of an effort to decouple all these UI features from the OS versions as well, so that you're not specifically targeting a version of the OS.
That's the idea. And once we get to, I mean, there will need to be a rollout of some of this stuff to start with. But once we get there, I think that hopefully it will be decoupled. I mean, there is a sort of kind of a move to decouple core OS from the UX anyway, generally. So Windows becomes almost two components, the UX and the actual underlying operating system, which might kind of make some sense.
Right, yeah. So I guess the way that they split these features up now in the service, and they can something could be tested in the fast ring and then moved to the slow ring as part of this 20H2 update. Yep,
could be.
Yep.
And I suppose that's the way that they do the testing then, isn't it? So they can do testing on a new feature. If it doesn't look like it's stable enough, it doesn't go into 20H2. It just stays in the fast ring until 20H2 becomes 21H1, I presume. Because that's I guess some of the features that we're potentially testing now would be for next year's half, 21H1, which seems a long time off, but that's exactly what they did with the May updates, wasn't it? They started early last year and shipped in May.
Yeah, it didn't work on Surface hardware. That's great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we did. We did talk about this last week as well, but it was sort of. I think I'm not sure whether it would been. We kind of just speculated. I think, but yeah, the May update is now okay, isn't it, for Surface hardware because of that patch that they released last week?
I don't. It's going to be okay. I don't think that is a patch out yet. I don't think it's out yet. It was coming in a couple of weeks. I think last time we spoke. So again, I don't have a recent Surface device, so I can't really comment. My Surface RT, sadly, Microsoft doesn't like talking about that. So,
and I've just installed the 20H2, and you can see it on my Surface Pro 4 here, which I deliberately didn't put Chromium Edge on there. And look, it's popped up. It's pre-installed it. So that was part of. So that install that I did then of 20, that was very quick as well, actually. It took about 5 minutes to install that 20H2, and it's installed a new Edge. And I've seen a number of sites now. I stopped using the old Edge for quite some while. I've been on the dev channel for Canary builds. I use the Canary all daily now. But I noticed a few other sites now starting to struggle with old Edge, and I replaced Edge on my wife's Surface because I noticed a few sites were having issues. So because she's just using the default browser, and so I think developers are starting to really forget about old Edge compatibility now, and they're not really worrying about that.
Well, that's handy because boy, Windows 10 is sure keen that you use the Edge Chromium, isn't it? It's very keen.
Yes. We've not seen this level of interest about using a Microsoft browser since since IE6 when Microsoft were really pushing it. But they're certainly keen to get to use it.
I mean, I had a funny thing happen actually at the weekend. I nuked a PC from Orbit and reinstalled it. I think it must have been to 1909, and we always joke about sort of Edge is that thing you use to install Chrome or whatever, and so I joke about that. Sorry, obviously you guys don't. But I put Chrome on, and then the next time I tried to run Chrome, in the start menu, it had as big as a Chrome icon. I typed in Chrome to sort of bring it up, and but beneath the Chrome icon was the huge big icon saying, recommended app, actually Edge for this. It's like, what? I've typed in Chrome. What are you doing here? So I think Microsoft are pushing it pretty hard at the moment. And I think there's also been some comments that so I think, is it Windows and some Windows insiders have also seen an issue with Windows where it keeps popping up Edge as kind of the start experience. Each time you log in, Edge pops up. So but that of course, I'm sure it's not. It's not intentional. But I'm pretty sure my start menu thing is.
I'm sure it is, and it's pretty much what Google does every time I open YouTube.
Yes, well, exactly. There is, of course, now the arms race, isn't there, between services saying, "Oh, this is not you aren't using Chrome to access this service. It may be a Chromium browser, but I'm going to just say, oh, you should try Chrome." I mean, I did quite like the solution that Vivaldi came up, because Vivaldi obviously also run a Chromium browser. I think was it at the end of last year they kind of threw in the towel and said, "Fine, our browser user agent string is just going to say Google Chrome from now on. We're just going to remove our brand completely from the user string," which meant that suddenly all the errors went away for their browser.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think there's some naughty things going on at the moment. I think certainly some companies aren't covering themselves in glory at the moment, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and when they're all effectively using the same engine, you shouldn't see any browser compatibility issues.
Exactly, they should all be the same. So why a site would insist on using one browser and not another Chromium-based browser? I couldn't explain that without saying something that might get me into trouble.
To be honest, I don't think I've seen YouTube do it for a few weeks, but it went through a stage of doing it all the time.
And certainly in Google Docs as well. Again, it hasn't done it recently, but it did do it a few months back, where it would just whinge at you the whole time and say, "Oh, you should be using Chrome." No, I shouldn't be using Chrome. This is a Chromium browser. You should be fine. And there's many. There's not just obviously Microsoft's new Edge is Chromium based, but there's Vivaldi. I think Brave, isn't that Chromium based as well?
That used to be Edge based, didn't it? But I think I think it is Chromium based now.
So there are a good few out there. But as you say, there's no reason why sites should differentiate. Although it has made me laugh seeing how hard Microsoft is now pushing Edge in Windows 10.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? They are really going for it, and they I think in this case though they're right to promote it, because it is probably the best browser experience for Windows.
Yeah, I'll say so.
Did we actually mention the fact that you can now install stuff from the Chrome store on Edge?
I thought you always could.
No, it wasn't. You could always you could sideload them, but you can actually directly go to the Chrome store now.
Oh, I bet Google's overjoyed about
that. Yeah, so and download, which is great actually, because I was able to use that when I was transferring PCs last week, and actually bring all my passwords and cookies across using one of the cookie plugins, which I quite like and use.
So you were able to pull down the passwords from a Chrome profile into Edge?
Yeah.
Right. I'm just thinking, because normally you've got to sign into your Google account to pull things down, and pull down bookmarks and things. So so in Chrome Edge you were syncing from your Google account?
No, I was able to use the cookies off my Chrome, bring them across that way. So you could actually, I used out of the Chrome store. I was able to use the one of the cookie managers I've used previously on Chrome, and just pull them straight across Cookie Pro, which I quite like.
I see.
And it just basically creates a file you can import into the other browser. So that's so basically I can have now one source of all my usernames and passwords for all my browsers, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I thought that was really nice. That was that worked incredibly smoothly, and the fact I could actually just get it from the Chrome Web Store is really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot simpler having one Chromium-based engine to rule the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I mean, I have slowly gone back to use, because I did use Edgium or Chromium Edge, or we call it, a lot in the early days, and then there were a few things. I think just a few odd crashes here and there, because it still had some rough edges. So I slipped back to using Chrome. But I have now actually gone back to Edge again, mainly because I'm lazy, and just Windows 10 does make it easier to use Edge.
Yeah, I say I've been using the Canary version since it first released, and although I've got the stable version, I don't use that because I've got the Canary as the default browser, so I just use that all the time, and using it all devices, all syncing up everything up, and yeah, no major issues. I can't say I've had to reach for another browser for some time now. Even there's no point even open another one for testing or anything. It all works fine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say when they got syncing working in Edge, that actually was probably the change point for me, because that wasn't working until quite recently actual syncing of profiles in Edge, because I do hop from machine to machine to machine. And once that was a thing that Chrome did very well, which Edge didn't really do particularly well. And now, of course, that's all there. That I think that may have been the last roadblock to stop using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've just remembered something. One of the things that really amused me with the Chrome Web Store, it had a little tag at the top saying you can add extensions from the Chrome Web Store to Microsoft Edge. Click on Add to Chrome.
Yay!
And another nail in the coffin for the Microsoft Store then.
Yeah.
Yeah, as things are available everywhere except there. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, that it's perhaps a sign of the way that the store is at the moment, that the main thing that Microsoft are pushing, or the two things that Microsoft are pushing at the moment, is the new browser and Teams, and neither of those you get through the Microsoft Store.
Indeed.
You'd think that would be the way, wouldn't you? That would be the number one, but neither of those two applications you can get through there. Same with if you get Skype for Windows 10, there is a store version, but the one that you get off the website is just a local install one. But especially with Teams as well, I'm glad it's not through the store. To be honest, it's easy deploying it, but you think that would be where they would push you to get all their new apps. And if you're setting a new machine up, that would be where you would go first and pick your apps. But that doesn't work like that now. I suppose they've got that package installer tool now instead.
Yeah, Winget, man.
Is that the future of the Windows Store?
Oh, I would think the future of the Windows Store involves Xbox, to be honest.
Yep,
yeah,
I do as well. I don't see Windows as being long-term solution, although it's been used for things you would never think to put in. I mean, like codecs and versions of Linux.
Yeah, Windows Terminal's there too.
Yeah, Windows. Yeah, so yep. I think I can't see many developers using the Windows Store to deploy stuff.
So if you're a developer and you want to, and you created a Windows 10 application, what's your default position now? How would you service that? Do you do it through your own website with your own servicing tools, or?
Probably. I mean, and would you actually create a UWP type app now anyway? I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that you'd probably have an app which can run on more platforms.
Yeah. So. I mean, the question is, and this is a nightmare scenario for Windows desktop developers: would you even write a Windows desktop app unless there's something very specific you had to do on the desktop? Because otherwise, I think you'd make it cross-platform. You'd probably make it a P2P to WA or web-based. I don't think you'd run a rich Windows client unless there was a real need you had to run on the desktop.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you're doing like an audio or a video editing tool or something like that, but if you create a communication tool or even editing tools, even visual editing tools could seem to be web-based is fine for that. So yeah, I guess you would keep it open cross-platform, then not restrict yourself.
Yep, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, but then how do you deploy that then? How would you target Windows? Just through the browser, isn't it? Yeah,
to deploy. And I think we're going to see more and more web type apps, especially with things starting to go the whole PWA, .NET in the browser, that sort of thing. It's just there's so many possibilities that way.
.NET in the browser, is that Silverlight?
No.
ActiveX documents.
Yeah, that's what it is. Actually, it is so like Silverlight. It's crazy, but yeah, it's not.
I did see that we're talking about Edge, that Microsoft a few because it's in the open source project, they've put quite a few commits in to get it work better on Windows Core and Windows 10X. So to make sure it works better under a container system. Because I guess this is whatever happens with Windows 10X, this Edge browser is the device that is the browser that would ship on any future Windows version. But we've still not heard anything. Not heard any news about Windows 10X.
No, not a thing.
No, I mean, I'm wondering, having seen the channel announcement, if we'll perhaps see a whole new product line for Windows 10X, because I just don't. now I'm wondering if that's just going to be a separate thing, or I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if it's going to quietly disappear. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we've got all this decided, and Microsoft has decided that actually we're going to shelve that and use the tech elsewhere.
Yeah,
because they've done this with the Windows Core before, haven't they? Before the Windows 10X project, there was another kind of Windows Core project, wasn't there?
Yeah. Although, I mean, I'm kind of thinking back to the Longhorn days and the Cairo days, things where there's all the hoo-ha and and all the very exciting demonstrations, and then it all went very, very quiet, and then you saw the components just turn up elsewhere. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not losing hope yet, but I mean, I've certainly heard that it's proved to be harder than they expected to make work acceptably, and I do worry. I do wonder if the focus is shifting elsewhere now.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they could bring that new simple start menu that we've seen in the demos of and the downloadable images for Windows 10X. They could bring that to Windows 10, no problem.
True. Although, again, one could say, why bother?
Yeah.
Windows 10 works pretty well. They've tried to sort of shunt new interfaces on before, and it's not gone so. It's not gone so. If there is no Neo, why would you bother having a simplified interface? I can see why you definitely want to do what's under the hood, but just putting out there. At this point, why bother if you've got no Neo, no dual screen device going? It's just a laptop. You might cause more confusion than you're solved by having a similar form factor running a different shell.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'd like to see the form factor on smaller tablet devices, but the Surface Go, but it's not as big a seller as the Surface. I know the Surface Go always does well, but I guess that people aren't particularly worried about the user interface that's not why they would buy it.
For sure. I mean, whenever I use a tablet like say an iPad, I always miss the Windows 8 concept of how that touch first in the interface would work. So I guess we'll see. Although maybe the Duo might be appearing earlier than we thought. I don't know if you've seen the muttering sooner.
Yes, I'm hoping so. Yeah, I've seen that it could possibly be before August or around the beginning of August.
That's what I'm hearing as well from a dev point of view. That we may be able to lay our hands on stuff very early August. So
but I mean that would probably fit in well. I mean, if you think when the companies because I think Inspire that happens September, does it? I think.
Yep.
So I'm thinking that's obviously the again it'll be a virtual event this year, but that's kind of their big partner event. So it would make sense to have something around then, definitely. Although, from what I've seen of the OS so far, it doesn't feel ready for launch yet, unless there's a new version about to hit, which will solve all the problems that we've got with the Duo emulator now. Which it's a great emulator; it goes very fast, but it doesn't feel finished yet. If you know what I mean.
Well, from the user interface side, it uses Microsoft Launcher 2. I think it's called Launcher 6, isn't it? Microsoft Launcher 6, which I've been using for 6 months, something like that, on my Pixel, because you can get the Microsoft Launcher through the Google Play Store, but there's two versions of it. There's the beta, and then there's the beta preview, which I think they've now switched the beta to be the preview version of it. But the launching side is fine, and the Android side is going to be fine as well. So I suppose the only elements that need work are the built applications to work with the folding screen, isn't it? It's not the split screen. The actual Android will work fine on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, the OS side is fine, but the components and tools which developers have to use to create JAWS, which is again, Gary, I'll defer to you here, but in my usage of it, it hasn't felt entirely baked yet. I mean, it's a great concept. The emulator is great. I will be given credit for that. But I was surprised when people began saying it could be out in August. I thought, crikey, okay.
Well, the tools are actually there. Yeah, I mean, the Xamarin tooling for dual screen has been out for some time now and works really well. Handles things like the spine and everything like that. So that seems to be pretty solid. I think it's going to be more the case of have they converted the software they want to convert to put on it, the things like the Office suite. whether they've actually got that in place.
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed, because it's always interesting to see, a new form factor, because I think you've seen the Android foldables up till now. At least the Microsoft one looks like it's a bit more robust, the approach that they've taken. So I'll keep my fingers crossed then.
Yep.
Yeah. As long as it's not too expensive, I am definitely in the market for a new phone, and I think it would be ideal for me. Although the lack of NFC rumor is a bit of an issue, because I do use the contactless all the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft haven't heard that loud and clear, because there's a lot of people were saying about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing they could do with this as well, because I think, as we talked about before, some of the specs are 2019 processor and other stuff. They could target this one as a developer enthusiast type device and not a mainstream device, and say we want to get this into developers' hands, so the future versions of the Duo are ready. And so maybe they could spin it that kind of way, and not promote it as a flagship phone. That will come next year, and this is more for people who want to get their hands on a dual screen Android phone early.
Possibly. I mean, that's kind of the HoloLens approach, isn't it? Where the HoloLens was very much a dev-first approach. The problem is it's such an in-your-face consumer device. I think the danger is, if they don't get it right first time out of the gate, it could generate a smell that might be hard to dissipate.
Yeah. I think the camera is going to be an issue, isn't it? From the rumors and things that we've seen, NFC, no 5G. If it's really expensive, then I think it's going to put a lot of people off. But then I think they were very careful when they kind of forget now, but when they first announced it, they really didn't want to call it a phone at all, even though we know it is. But they tried to avoid that. Yeah,
I mean, they can try and avoid it all they like, but ultimately it's got to have a decent camera, and it's going to be lined up against the current flagship phones if it's given a flagship price. That's the issue that they've got. And if it doesn't measure up and they charge a silly amount for it, I mean, we should perhaps have some kind of sweepstake to decide how much we think it's going to cost. I mean, I'm going to go out there and say I think it's going to cost £1,095.
Let me write this down. So 1,095,
including VAT.
One bought it.
So we're doing GB prices, are we?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be
including VAT.
I think it's going to be £995 including VAT.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and $995 in the States.
Actually, I'm pretty much with Gary on this one. I think it's going to be just that sub 1,000. But what was the game? What was the 80s game where you used to? Was it guess name? What was the Price is Right? Price is Right. That was it. Yeah. So in the style of that one, I'll just go for 990 to go one better than Gary. And I think Gary's right price there. I think it'll be more just under the 1,000 than over the 1,000, because of if it had the 2020 processor and maybe a better camera and NFC and everything else, then maybe it would be higher. But of course, they've not announced what features are in it yet. So
exactly. Yeah. But if it does go for that price, it's got to have 2020 specs. You can't charge £1,000 for a phone and it not be pretty good. You can't say, it's deficit, because again, it's gonna appear in the media, it's going to be reviewed, and people will say, well, it's all very good, but compared to your Samsung or your Apple device, it's a bit bobbins, and that would be a real shame.
So I've worked out on the principle that if it was any other manufacturer, it'd be 495, but you have to allow for the service tax and double it.
And the cost of screens as well. I mean, you've got two screens. That's not cheap, is it?
Screens are one of the cheaper parts of phones these days.
Yeah.
And of course you're right though, Gary. It has got the Surface Premium. It is a premium brand, isn't it? As we know from other devices. We'll have to see whether I get one of those or just get. Because I kind of said for a while, I'm not really. I've seen like the S20s, and my son's got an S20. They're really nice phones, everything. I just don't. They seem a lot of money for what they are, but they've got fantastic cameras. But I use my camera fairly infrequently. If I'm going somewhere where I want to take really good shots, I'll take a proper camera. If I'm going to Silverstone or something, I'm going to go to the car racing. I'll take a proper camera. Family photos, it's okay. So the 20 lenses that are on the S20 might be a bit overkill for me. So maybe a single one on the Surface is okay, but then the dual screen thing it is a novelty, and if I can't use it for contactless payment, it's probably what's one of the main things that I would use my phone for when I do leave the house. So we'll see. But hopefully the price is lower than we're speculating. But I just got a feeling that that's the price, and it will be not promoted in the same way as a Surface Pro X is the main device. I think it's more like that HoloLens idea. But we might not have too long to wait. When's my birthday? July 24th. What do you reckon? 21st of July. It would be nice to get.
Yeah,
nice...
could be.
Yeah.
Not in the UK though. You'd have to go to the States to get one, which might be pretty tricky at the moment.
Yes, I can probably not be able to do that. Now, something else. So we talked about launcher. So I just finished the story on that. So yeah, if you want to try that launcher that's coming to the on the Surface Duo, you can get that now. You just join the beta program and you get a launch beta. So I've been using it for a good 6 months, I would say. No issues with it at all. It's nice and smooth. You can do everything you expect with a launcher, and it's just kind of got that kind of Microsoft feel to it, but it's still very much an Android launcher. It's a lot cleaner than some of the other third-party launchers I've used. So I think it bodes well for a nice user experience on the Surface.
Yep.
Oh, I'm talking of Android app. Well, not just Android, actually. All the platforms. Have you tried the new Sonos app? I don't know if you've got a Sonos to try. I think it was Jason that had the Sonos, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a Sonos user, so.
Yeah. Sonos have got some a new platform out. Do you remember all the story a few months ago now about Sonos, how they were not supporting new features on some of their older devices? It caused quite a bit of a hoo-ha with that. So all of the devices I've got are supported. So what they've done, they've split their app. They renamed their old controller app Sonos S1, and they've launched a new app called Sonos S2. So if you've got one of the supported or any of the supported devices, you use the S2 app. The S1 app supports all the devices. But the advantage with the S2 app is you've got a new user interface. It supports higher definition audio. So I think the lossless, the highest, what was it on the Sonos? It was basically CD lossless quality. Yeah. They've gone for the higher qualities now if you use the S2 app.
I think they've been forced that way because of Amazon doing their HD audio, because up until that point, Sonos had no interest in going higher than 48 hertz on the sampling. So they felt CD quality was good enough. And it was challenging to go any higher than that with the chipset on some of the older devices. So
that's probably why they've had to do this.
Yeah,
it's got a new look and feel in it. Although once you've got rid of the cosmetics, it actually looks very much the same as the old app. The things are in the same place. There's just a little bit color and a flatter design, so it looks very much like the old app. They've kept it. It's not a radical change to it, but I've only had a quick play with it, and it seems to work fine. The PC version has been updated as well, which I was very much expecting the Windows desktop version to be not unchanged and unloved, and the Android and iOS get new versions, but actually there's an S2 version for Windows 10 and Mac as well. So they've got support for those features as well, which is nice to see. So it wouldn't have shocked me if they hadn't, because I can't imagine there's that many people using the Sonos controller app on Windows. I guess most people use a phone or a tablet for it. But anyway, I've got it working, tested it, and it works fine. Nothing particularly new to try, especially the using the higher quality audio rates when I use mine for the line in from my vinyl record player a lot of the time, so it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to me. I'll have to go and tell and see if my 1973 copy of Dark Side of the Moon sounds any better. It doesn't the original one. But anyway, I've got those installed.
Cool.
Richard, you alluded to something before about when we talked about the May update. Printing has proven to be a bit of an issue, and I don't think we've mentioned that before.
Yeah. There's been a few. I mean, there's obviously when it arrived, there were quite a large number of a surprisingly large number of issues turned up with it. Obviously, there's always issues when these things launch, but quite a large number turned up. But one thing that wasn't mentioned there was an issue around printers which turned up. It actually affects, I think, a bunch of versions of Windows, and it came with the Patch Tuesday update, and it seemed to basically knock off certain types of connected printers if your printer was plugged in. I mean, I had a few people come to me direct about it and say that their printer had simply stopped working until they rolled back the Patch Tuesday, and which is unfortunate. And it's now turned up in the health dashboard, and Microsoft is going to be is flinging out an out-of-band optional update to try and address this issue, in which certain printers can't print after installing Patch Tuesday. Which is, again, that's awkward. It's worse because, of course, lots of people are having to work from home or work remotely, so people are using local printers. I mean, again, a network printer worked fine. Wi-Fi printer worked fine. I mean, I encountered it on one of my test machines here, an old PCL5 based brother printer, which I plugged in through USB. That didn't work. It just stopped until I installed the patch update. So yeah, it has been an issue. There's also been some issues around USB as well. I don't know if you guys have seen those, where the USB port disappears, and you've got to basically make sure you reboot your Windows machine in a certain way so it doesn't lose the printer port. So kind of affects older printers, maybe those that are plugged in via USB. But again, it's unfortunate. It does. One always worries a bit when these things happen, because it means there's been some testing missed. And I have to give Microsoft credit. Windows does work on a fantastic array of devices, and sometimes things do slip through. But this seems to be quite a big one, and they've obviously moved quite fast to address it.
You'd be surprised how many people love printing. I mean, I always think, well, he wants to print, but actually, especially when people work at home, I've got loads of them who will love it.
I mean, it's working from home, but it's also those who are homeschooling, because those of us with small children at home.
I understand that, yeah.
You get the never-ending PowerPoints from whatever, or Google Docs from schools, which you have to print out, and suddenly your printer stops working. I mean, I can imagine how stressful that must be for some people. Although that said, if you have got a local printer plugged into USB port, I would suggest perhaps magically transforming it into a Wi-Fi printer using a Raspberry Pi, which was a project I tried recently, and that works really well.
So what? So explain that again.
You can basically, there's basically a set of steps. I think it might even be in the latest issue of Magpie, possibly, but you can basically configure a Raspberry Pi. These little sort of tiny machines. I think it even works on a Pi Zero. I think. No, I mean I've tried it on a Pi 3. And what it will do is you basically plug that into your printer. And of course, that's got Wi-Fi and what have you. So then you can then print.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, by that it's kind of like a
little print server.
Yeah, it's neat. So
it's a modern version of a Jet Direct.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Thank you, Ian. A Jet Direct.
I used to love Jet Direct. They were brilliant.
Yeah. So. Well, that's much. Yes, as I say, just back to this issue. So I believe they've issued an out-of-band patch for up to Windows 1909, and I think one's coming along for 2004 as well. So it's good they've patched it fast. It's just unfortunate it made its way out.
Now, if you wanted to print out your finances, you can obviously use Excel for that.
Wow.
And they've
what
got
a seamless link.
and they've got a fantastic new add-in if you're in the US for Excel.
I actually heard the gears crunching then. That was yeah. So isn't this the thing they announced when they did the whole rebrand thing for Office 365 Home to Microsoft 365, and they announced all these new toys, and I think we've seen some start to appear with the Android stuff. But this is the kind of managing your money through an Excel spreadsheet thing, which is kind of a very, very clever Excel add-in. It's an impressive thing. Only works in the US, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just old, but I miss Microsoft Money. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I used to use that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. Good
Yeah.
product.
I used to. I remember coming home from a shopping trip and coming and keying your receipts into Microsoft Money.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
So this is kind of it's a step towards that. Although obviously you've got all the analytic tools you've got built into Excel, but it's US only at the moment. Unfortunately, I'm not quite sure when we're going to get to see a UK version. I guess they've got to get the agreements in place for the banks and things, I suppose. And
does it link in with your bank then? It has to link into your bank to be useful, I suppose.
That's correct. Yeah. And I'm sure that there's also some UK rules and regulations and European rules and regulations that needs to also be.
Yeah, it probably is. Although open banking in the UK which really came in at the start last year, has made that a lot easier for them than it would have been previously.
So there's no excuse then, Gary, at all. So you just say, so you're saying the Microsoft are just being lazy here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll say that. That'd be nice.
Quote on tomorrow's post.
Yeah.
I'd be nice to see that come up, but yeah, I think anything that involves banking and money and regulatory stuff like this is not going to be a quick transfer.
I mean, my feeling is whenever kind of you're obviously back in the days when we used to go to the US. It always felt as though the US was quite some way behind Europe in terms of banking systems and things.
Very far behind.
Contactless stuff. I mean, the NFC thing, for example, it always feels like they're a long way behind. So why they felt they need to do a US only version of this and not roll it out more globally seems a bit obtuse to me, really.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I want. That's why we're probably not going to get NFC because of that. Yeah, on Duo.
So I think the only other thing that caught my eye in the last month was obviously last week rather was obviously the educational stuff around Teams, where they finally said they're going to produce a 7x7 window or 49 streams, so you can do your classroom teaching things or what have you.
Oh right, yeah.
But again, that's not coming until autumn, or fall, as they insist on calling it. But autumn, so that's handy because obviously Zoom has had that feature for a long time. I think even Google, some of the Google Meet system, I think has got a similar function, whereas I think Teams only goes as far as 3x3 at the moment. So I mean, which I mean, I don't know if you've used that at all. Which it works okay if you're lecturing, I think, but if you're having any kind of interaction, it's just nightmarish because it's very hard to manage those kind of things. You kind of need to have a very everyone aware of the fact you've got to press your hand up button and then wait to be enabled to talk. Otherwise, it can get very confusing very quickly when you have multiple people on the screen at once.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you manage even 7x7. I'm not sure how you manage that. If you're a teacher or doing a lecture or even a meeting, you almost need someone else to be working with you because you can't. It's like when you try to do those alt space meetups that we did. It's very hard to deliver the content and be chatting about builds and things while at the same time watching for people put their hands up and moderating chats and all that kind of thing. You almost need a separate person to do that when you get to that kind of number.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I suppose if they're using education, because I was wondering why 7x7 was particularly important, but then I wasn't thinking education. I was thinking, using it for business meetings. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, I noticed.
I mean, the issue with the current situation we're in at the moment is obviously when schools and colleges start up again in September. What's going to happen? Because we don't know if students will be going back. We don't know if campuses are going to be open, how lectures are going to work. I mean, I've seen a few UK universities come out and say we will be doing online virtual events for large lectures. We're not going to have a large lecture next year, regardless.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So this is, I think, it's well timed, but I do worry about Teams and Microsoft and Skype and things. They are slightly missing the boat at the moment, and Zoom has come from nowhere and is almost eating their lunch.
Yeah, it's kind of got that brand name at the moment, hasn't it? That people are starting to say, well, it's a Zoom meeting, regardless of the technology that you're using. It's like the old Hoover thing.
I'll Google for this, I'll Hoover that. Let's have a Zoom.
Yeah.
Which I used to say.
Yeah, definitely not. And I actually prefer using Teams, but I think that's because everything I've got is in Teams, and I've switched to it at work, and we switched to it on here, so it's a lot easier for me just to stick with Teams.
I could sort the multi-tenant stuff out in Teams. I'd be really happy sticking in Teams, but at the moment it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, that's it. Because it's solved for me by having two separate devices. That's my way of solving it, really. I've got one with my work device and with my work Teams on it, and my personal one. So that's the only way I can do it. But if you're a member of multiple ones, then it gets really confusing.
Yeah, I mean, like I've completely lost access to some of the Microsoft stuff I belong to. I've set up my own Teams for the company. Just doing that broke everything else.
Yeah, it can get a bit confusing. So they do need a nice, simple way of switching between them, and a way of still receiving notifications. Because like on my phone, I've got Teams signed into my work account, so I get my work notifications on Teams on my phone. But then if you were to message me through Teams on my personal one, it wouldn't come up on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this is something they're looking at, but there has to be a way of, because Teams is different from that perspective. We meet Zoom. Zoom's just meetings, isn't it? But Teams has got other things with it as well, and they perhaps need to come up with a solution of being able to manage your identity as being your home identity, your work. If you're a contractor, I guess it must be. If you've got a lot of contract, you must be a member of all sorts of teams now. It must be really. I mean, like with you, Gary, I know you have multiple teams that you're a member of that aren't your organisation, but you're a member of somebody else's.
Yeah, I think 40 at the last count.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, so there has to be a better way of synchronizing those together. I've just, even with two, I've just keep them entirely separate. It's still not ideal. I'd still like to receive both notifications on my phone, for example. So there has to be a better way.
I give Microsoft their due. They've kind of sorted this multi-tenant stuff out on Azure with the portal, newer portal. Right. Which allows you to switch between accounts very easily and switch things. But yeah, on Teams at the moment, it's a nightmare. It really is. Yeah,
it's and especially now as more of us are using Teams than ever, because you just get them all. You get these meeting requests all over now, don't you?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And sharing files.
I mean, what the funniest thing is, I'm in this call at the moment. I could chat in the chat. As soon as we finish this call, I will not be able to actually post anything in the chat. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but they've got a lot of people working on Teams. It has been for a while a high priority or high focus platform for Microsoft, but it really is now, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the other feature which is coming soon, and we've discussed, is the whole push to talk thing.
Oh yeah.
Instant chat, basically, which I think could be quite. But it's less of a sort of a Skype type call, more of actually you press the button, you talk, someone else presses the button and talks. Which is interesting.
They should have kept MSN Messenger.
They should have done.
There's nothing wrong with MSN Messenger. And what was the one that they used that was pre-link? It was just called Windows Messenger, wasn't it? I think to Windows. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's amazing how these technologies come around, because I did use that at work for a while, and it kind of went out of favour. And of course, it's now the in thing again. These platforms. Well, I shall go and download this recording now through Teams, and then I can edit this again. I do like the recording feature. So far, so good. It might, I'm sure we'll get one that causes some issues, but so far, so good. Because even if I get a bit of internet dropout on my side, it still records it well. So it's got some good points, got some pluses from that side of it.
Good.
Yeah. So Gary, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Garry with 2 R's WMA, and you can see me waxing lyrical about EV chargers this week.
Oh, I've seen you tweeting about EV chargers.
Yeah, my charging manifesto. Let's simplify EV charging. It's time we did it.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean, that's the only way to get adoption, and if you keep things simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Richard, where can we find you?
Mostly on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. Well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me in at thejustlifestyle.com. Thanks for everybody that's listened, and thanks for everybody that's watched. And I'm going to install 20H2 now.
Me too.
Yeah, see you next week.
Catch you soon.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks for Richard and Gary. We'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me in at thejustlifestyle.com, at iSticks on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.